Why survivors of narcissistic abuse are left completely alone and no one talks about it. Narcissists aren't known for having real friendships. In fact, most of what surrounds them isn't friendship at all. They build empires of illusion filled with flying monkeys and enablers. People who orbit their ego like satellites, endlessly feeding their need for admiration and control. But survivors of narcissistic abuse, they also often walk through life without many close friendships. And yet the reasons behind their solitude couldn't be more different. If you've ever wondered why survivors tend to stand alone, let's go deep and uncover the truth. Reason 1. You're done with the performance. You've lived through betrayal so raw and so all-consuming that now anything inauthentic feels like poison. You can no longer force a smile while your intuition screams. You can't pretend to laugh at someone's joke if it comes wrapped in passive aggression or cruelty. You can't sit in circles where people rip others apart behind their backs, then hug them like best friends the next day. You just can't do it. Not because you're bitter, but because you've grown. You crave transparency now. You yearn for emotional depth, not small talk. You want relationships that feel like soil, not sand. And in a world where many connections are built on shallow validation and silent betrayals, your refusal to play along makes you a rare breed. It's not that you're antisocial. It's that your capacity for nonsense has dried up. Your nervous system has been through enough. You no longer have the energy to invest in people who drain you, confuse you, or leave you guessing. So you walk away. And no, that doesn't make you cold or lonely. That makes you someone with standards. That makes you someone who's learned, perhaps the hardest way possible, that not all company is good company. Reason 2, social anxiety has become a lingering companion. When you've been in the grip of a narcissist, your sense of self becomes a battlefield. Every part of who you are, your voice, your instincts, your opinions, gets questioned, mocked, or erased. Over time, you begin to doubt your very right to exist in social spaces. You forget how to just be, because you were trained to always be pleasing, silent, or invisible. And the worst part, that internalized voice of the narcissist doesn't go away after the relationship ends. It becomes a shadow. It follows you into conversations, into rooms, into every new encounter, whispering lies like, "You're too much. You're not enough. You'll mess this up." So when you're faced with an opportunity to connect, to chat with a stranger, to open up, to show who you are, your body reacts as if it's under attack. Your mind races to preempt every possible misstep. You overthink, you filter, you freeze. That isn't because you're awkward or broken. It's because your brain still sees connection as danger. Your amygdala has been rewired to treat closeness as a threat, because closeness once meant manipulation, abandonment, or abuse. And in that state, it's easier to stay home, to retreat, to avoid the exhausting dance of pretending you're okay when inside you're overwhelmed by anxiety and self-doubt. You'd rather sit in silence with yourself than try to navigate yet another interaction where you feel like a burden. It's not that you don't want connection. It's that your trauma keeps telling you it's safer to stay small, hidden, and alone. Reason 3. You speak the truth, and most people can't handle that. You've become someone who values truth more than comfort, and in a world that thrives on illusions, that's not a popular trait. You've outgrown the habit of sugarcoating reality just to preserve someone else's fragile ego, especially when that ego belongs to a narcissist who thrives on constant praise, flattery, and blind compliance. These individuals surround themselves with people who echo their fantasies, who worship their false self, who silence their own needs just to keep the peace. But you've evolved past that. You now see relationships as ecosystems of mutual growth, where one gives and the other gives back, where accountability is a form of love, and where honesty is not cruelty but respect. You're the mirror many people run from. You reflect their inconsistencies, their contradictions, their shadows. You tell them what they don't want to hear, not to tear them down, but because you've learned that anything built on denial will eventually collapse. That level of emotional maturity makes you threatening to those who only want to take. They're not used to someone who says, "I won't carry this entire relationship on my back anymore. If this matters to you, show me. Meet me halfway, or leave. And because of that, they call you difficult. They label you rude. But what they are really saying is, you refuse to let me use you. Your authenticity exposes their inauthenticity. Your boundaries disrupt their entitlement. You've already lost too much to people who took and took and took, until you were empty. And now, you simply refuse to lie to anyone about who they are or who you are. You can be kind, yes, but not at the cost of your truth. Not at the cost of your peace. You've seen what happens when two people relate through masks. Nothing real ever grows. That's why you demand something deeper. That's why your presence makes people uncomfortable. You don't settle for crumbs anymore. And to those who are used to feasting off others, your hunger for realness is a threat. Reason 4. Your trust was not just broken, it was demolished. When you've been deceived on a soul-deep level, when everything you once believed in was revealed to be a performance, the very concept of trust becomes foreign. You didn't just get hurt, you were shattered. You gave your heart, your loyalty, your blind belief to someone who smiled as they took everything from you. Whether it was a partner, a parent, or an entire family system, the betrayal was all-consuming. You weren't just lied to, you were emotionally ambushed. Every promise was a trap. Every tender moment was a setup for more pain. That kind of betrayal doesn't just end when the relationship ends. It etches itself into your nervous system. It rewrites your emotional code. Your brain no longer sees love as safety, it sees it as danger. So when a new friendship presents itself, your first instinct isn't to embrace it. It's to brace for impact. Because if the people you trusted most in the world turned out to be the source of your deepest wounds, how can you possibly believe that someone new wouldn't do the same? You're not paranoid, you're protective. You're not closed off, you're cautious. Because what you've learned is that some of the kindest masks hide the cruelest intentions. And that some of the most charming people turn out to be emotional predators. Your brain is screaming relational trauma, even in calm moments, because your point of reference is still built on devastation. You need time. You need consistency. You need evidence that this person won't pull the rug out from under you the moment you feel safe. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've been betrayed so badly, you now require what everyone should require: proof. You're no longer willing to gamble your peace. That's why you step back from intense, high-stakes connections. That's why you hesitate, observe, retreat. You're not afraid of people, you're afraid of illusions. And after what you've been through, that's not fair. That's wisdom. Reason 5. Even healthy friendships feel like too much work when you're still bleeding inside. Let's imagine, for a moment, that you've found someone genuine, a kind, non-toxic soul who means no harm and truly wants to be your friend. They are not manipulative. They are not a narcissist. They show up, they care, and they want to build something real. That's beautiful, right? And yes, that's how friendships should be. Reciprocal, intentional, balanced. But here's the thing. Even the healthiest connections require energy. They require effort. They require you to show up, to check in, to match the care and attention that you're being given. That's not unreasonable. That's just the nature of human connection. But what happens when your emotional body feels like it's been through war? What if your inner world is still trying to piece itself back together from the destruction of narcissistic abuse? What if your nervous system is still in survival mode, and the fog in your mind is so thick you can barely remember what day it is, let alone remember to text someone back? Imagine being asked to run a marathon with both of your legs broken, not because people are cruel, but because they don't see the fractures inside of you. That's what this feels like. You want to connect. You want to give back. But you're still recovering your ability to even exist without constant fear or self-doubt. So instead, you withdraw. You dissipate. And then comes the shame. Maybe I don't deserve friendships. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe no one will ever truly accept me. But none of that is true. You're not broken, you're healing. You're not incapable, you're wounded. You're not selfish, you're tired. So very tired. Reason 6. The isolation wasn't a choice, it was engineered. Perhaps the most painful reason of all. You were isolated long before you realized you were alone. Narcissists don't just manipulate, they invade. They infiltrate your support system, poison your relationships, and dismantle every bridge that connects you to the outside world. It's a methodical, strategic process. They whisper doubts about your friends. They don't really care about you. They are jealous. They'll leave you like everyone else. And eventually, you believe it. You push people away not because you don't love them, but because you were convinced they were a threat. Then, the narcissist becomes your everything. Your confidant, your only source of validation, your captor. And when the mask finally slips and they discard you or you manage to break free, you turn around to find a wasteland. The people you once loved are gone. Some were pushed away. Others turned against you after hearing lies and half-truths in the narcissist smear campaign. And now you sit in the ruins, not only grieving the abuser, but also mourning the connections they took from you. And worse, the shame makes you think it was your fault. I should have known better. I should have held on tighter. I pushed them away. I messed everything up. No, you were deceived by a master manipulator, a fraud who weaponized your love and trust to serve their hunger for control. They stole your friends, your joy, your clarity, and left you with silence. That silence becomes its own kind of prison. Because now, even if you wanted to reach out, what would you say? Hey, I vanished for a few years because I was under psychological siege. They may not understand. They may not even answer. That's the part that hurts the most. But there's still hope. Reconnect Ion doesn't have to begin with grand declarations or deep vulnerability. It doesn't need to be intense or emotionally demanding. You can start small. A conversation at the gym, a casual chat with a colleague, a smile exchanged without expectation. Relationships that feel safe because they don't require you to bleed to be worthy of belonging. You don't need to dive into the deep end right away. Wade in, breathe, let the water feel safe again.